So, Lewis, it's all yours.
Hi, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to present to you today and hopefully get a little feedback on what you find from what I say. I have a lot of slides, so I'm going to speak quickly. My background was I am a carpenter. I wanted to build my own solar house after finishing college, got a job as a construction laborer, and then eventually grew to be one of the first contractors in the country to focus my design build business on remodeling for aging in place. Since then, I've been through a number of waves, having done many accessibility projects over the years, but also became a writer and advocate and spent a lot of time at the 60,000 foot level and then now with some partners um, have a business that's more focused on the down and dirty of installing grab bars at scale. But today I'm just going to talk with you in general about aging in place, starting with the question, are you hoping to age in place? And I love these audiences because for the most part, if you've joined a village, you are saying, hell no, I won't go. You'd prefer to age in place. And
Lewis, can you switch to slideshow mode?
oh, sure. Much better, probably. Excellent. Thank you very much for suggesting that. Um,
That didn't do it.
it didn't.
No.
I'll continue to share. Just a second, another button.
There
Uh,
we go.
there.
Much better.
Okay, thank you. Um, so what I really have here, are you hoping to age in place? Because many people, and particularly people who have joined villages, are really interested in that, but it often doesn't work out. So what I have here today is kind of a to-do list on how to age in place, what to do in terms of your own planning to increase your chance of success. So, first of all, the agenda will cover a little bit of an intro to aging to give us some context, aging in place, and a little bit about retirement communities, and then break down into the financial, safety, lifestyle, and socialization and independence and control issues of aging in place. So for me, I think it's important initially just to talk about what is successful, positive, purposeful aging. We hear all these words. Wellness means different things to different people. For me, flourishing has become a big word. In my own aging time and experience, I want to flourish. There's a lot of conversation now about these words health span versus age span versus lifespan. And it's kind of an important conversation. The point is, if you want any of these things, you need to really prepare. Physical fitness, we all know, is critically important. Loneliness has grown to be a well understood difficulty for and connection and community. Purpose is really important. Emotional, spiritual, intellectual, occupational, social, financial growth, continuing to growth. That goes with flourishing. But for me personally, what I care about and what I'm dedicated to is dignity, joy, and respect for people's choices in our aging experience. So the fact is, stuff happens. It happens throughout your life, whether it's your health, something about you, something about the world around you that comes in the way. And how are you prepared? What can you control? Because whatever you do and can control will increase the possibility that you will age successfully in the way that you want to and have respect for your choices. People often talk about downsizing and right sizing, and I find these to be not the right issues. To me, the reality of aging is that because stuff happens to you, size doesn't matter, but your home has to meet your changing needs. We change, it's more dramatic or more noticeable as we get older, and that makes it really important that we recognize and understand that our houses need to be prepared for that. So the house has to match the person now and as they change. It has to match their longevity, which is what we're talking about. You continue to grow older and different. You have to have expectations that you understand and are ready to deal with. And in fact, that all comes around to choices that stick. So it requires doing research about your choices. It's not a passive behavior and then implementing your plan before the crisis, not waiting until the crisis to implement your plan because that just doesn't work. And these is just to show you like the age-friendly ecosystem. We hear about age-friendly from AARP and from World Aging Organizations and stuff. And this is just to show that there are a lot of kind of pieces to it. The ones we're going to concentrate on, of course, are the home and home and community-based services, but you're all dealing with all of these all of the time. And then there is maybe one of the two most famous longevity consultant speakers, Joe Coughlin from MIT Age Lab. The other one is probably Ken Dykewald from Age Wave. And Joe has quite brilliantly come up with these three critical questions. Who will change my light bulbs? In other words, what are the services that come in and out of your house as you need them? You shouldn't be on a ladder. You shouldn't change your light bulb, but that's just a metaphor for the whole set range of services. How,
Gary, can we stop for a second? Louis, your screen is bouncing around and flashing. Do you know why?
no idea. It's not for me.
Is it for everybody
Um,
else or is it?
it is. It's like you got two different slideshows open at the same time.
I
Really?
think it's going back and forth
There
between
it
the
says,
view, the slide view, and the other view.
Unmute.
Because you see
You're
pictures
actually
on the
unmuting.
side and then you
Why don't I
don't.
Oh,
do this?
okay.
Why don't I stop sharing once and then share
uh,
again? And that's the only thing I can imagine doing. Okay.
Gary, I think it may be a Zoom issue. I'm not sure. Ours is doing the same thing, but it seems to do it sometimes on Zoom, but we tried.
Perfect.
well, okay, we're back to where we want to be. So let's hope it
Let's try it.
continues this way.
Thank you for your patience on that. How will I get an ice cream cone? And you understand what this means as a metaphor. With, how will I get stuff delivered to my house? How will I get there? How will I get to all kinds of things? I've lately had a broken leg from a skiing accident, so I've needed a lot of rides. How did I get to the doctor? How did I get groceries in? All kinds of things like that have emerged for me where my work has become less theoretical and more real. And then, of course, something I heard about, there's going to be Mexican train tomorrow and so forth. With whom will I have lunch? And as we get older, we all know that our cohort starts to change sometimes more rapidly than we do, whether that means dying or whether it just means being more homebound or having more difficulties with the activities of daily life or the joy and pleasure of life. So I don't need to go into much of this with you, but there's kind of this dividing line between what I call service enriched housing, housing that has with it an amount of services, whether it is, kind of most, the strongest amount of services in a nursing home, or a more limited amount of services in assisted living, or something that many of you may have studied, which is the continuum services that can come in a continuing care retirement community, a CCRC, in which all of these levels of service are basically in one location and under one contract, so to speak. On the other side is, general community housing, lifestyle housing, active adult housing, which typically is kind of not service oriented, co-housing, which is its own special category of intentional community, and then what most of us are doing, which is independent living in our own homes in the community. So there's a range of things we can look at and pick from, but I've got a feeling that this group is mostly in that little area called independent living. And then why is this all so significant? And the answer really has to do with the miracle of longevity, the medical science that has caught up with us. So in 1776, life expectancy was 32. Some of the people we admire as our founding parents, Alexander Hamilton or something, these guys were not very old. They were really the age of our kids, maybe. And yet they were already moving forward with serious matters of life. By 1900, it had changed to 47 life expectancy. By 1935, a significant date because it's when Social Security was adopted, life expectancy was only 61 and the payout was going to come at 65. So they weren't planning to pay a whole lot of people for very long as they are now, which is why the basic Social Security fund is largely, uh, some people think it's not adequate. 1950, the date after the post-war, where the post-war housing boom started to take place, and we started to get design ideas, particularly around the 5 foot by 7 or 8 foot bathroom, that are very common throughout housing in the United States. Much of our 100 million existing homes have the same basic design ideas behind them. 1965, another really serious time, which was Medicare came in, life expectancy was 71. And as you'll see from some of the future slides, but also from your own experience, life is much different at 71 than it is at 80 or 85 or something like that. So what we were not planning again to pay for as much health care for as long as we are now when we adopted Medicare. 1969, I highlight this date because the moon launch. So, what in your life, particularly like a Zoom meeting, right? What in your life hasn't changed technologically and so forth since the moon launch? And yet, our two main social safety nets predate that significantly and substantially. 2000, turn of the century again, now see from 47 in 1900 to 2076 is life expectancy. Far different, and far different ages and needs. 2011, when changes kind of start at age 79, and in 2023, the last date I checked, 79, around 79 is still average life expectancy. And life is much different at that point than it is earlier. So these, I'm just showing you these to kind of indicate the graphs that you see here. That tall graph is falls, fatal falls by age group. And that tall graph there at 20,000 or just over 20,000 is age 85. By 85, that many people are dying of a fall. And you can see the hockey shape curve of this. And this is crude rate of falls by age. And again, you can see at the earliest sign, 0 to 4, you fall all the time, younger ages. And then you get up there, and again, it moves way up and takes a steep curve as we approach age 85. So the realities of aging are that falls are a really significant event that can steal dreams and change lives really quickly. And that's one of the things we have to work to resist, change the risk factor for our individual selves for falling. Falls are very expensive. They disrupt lives. Falls cost enormous amount of money, way more than a grab bar, for example. 1 in 4 falls, 1 in 4 older Americans fall every year, half in the house, 80% in the bathrooms, and grab bars can reduce falls by at least or as much as 30%. And these numbers, the number on reducing falls is very hard to get because many of the studies are multifactorial and so forth. And as we know, the oldest boomers are turning 80 this year, and it's going to be continue rise in population at this age for many, many years. Now, just in detail, bathing and showering, getting into and out of the shower is that most dangerous place in the house and in the bathroom for falls. It's a lot, 37% of falls in that area. So just to put that in some kind of context, over 14 million older adults fall every year, resulting in, I think the number is now 80 billion in medical costs. Falls cost more than money, though. They cost a lot in terms of the disruption to our lives, the disruption to our partnerships, the disruption to our relationships. But in 2022, around 38,000 Americans aged 65 and up died of a fall-related injury, which is equal to an Airbus 320 going down 5 days a week, every week of the year. And I ask us, what would we spend to keep airplanes falling out of the sky at that rate? What would the national crisis and emergency be like? And why don't we consider falls among older adults an equally serious emergency that frankly can be solved much more quickly and cheaply than Airbuses falling out of the sky. Now, the disability with aging, so not necessarily falls, but disability also rises in a similar curve. This column is 80 and over, this column is 75 to 79, and the green line is household activity, the blue line is mobility, and the red line is self-care. So there's a substantial and significant change that we can all actually anticipate if we're smart enough and plan for if we are of if that is our nature. By 2035, an astounding 1 out of 3 American households will be headed by someone age 65 and older. We are a large and growing portion of the population. 17 million adult households will have at least one person with a mobility disorder. So just getting around in the house for you or your partner or whatever is a really significant factor you need to pay attention to. And then in terms of care needs, these are data points about the need for care, limitations in activities of daily living, which is kind of a measure of care needs, and instrumental. These blue curves, again, are above 75. These high blues, deep blues are above age 75, where care needs start to be matched. And then, unfortunately, we have the problem of what's called the caregiver ratio, frankly, compounded by a reduced number of immigrants who do this sort of work. But we have so many fewer people to care for those of us who need it, and it's getting worse. And this, frankly, makes caregiving expensive, but also the opportunity to avoid caregiving by doing planning. 30% or 40% fewer caregiver hours needed in a home that has been prepared for it, according to a study from Australia or New Zealand. So there's a real multiple benefits from getting ahead of the game on this. Um, and and the really important point is that we don't just get sick and die, or we don't just get sick and go downhill. We have bouts of illness and we go up and down. We get very sick for a short while, maybe hospitalized for a while, and then miraculously we're fine again. We're playing bocce and we're playing Mexican train and getting ice cream cones and going out for lunch. But that dynamic nature means we need the resiliency in our home systems, our life systems, our care networks in order to deal with it coming on and going away. Everybody has these sorts of ups and downs in life, but they're much more severe, particularly with the advent of such incredible medical care. You hear about a friend of yours getting sepsis and being in the hospital for 7, 8, 9 weeks, and then you see them around again. They're fine. This is the nature of our lives in this modern age. So I urge you to take care of yourselves and avoid accidents because spare parts, even though we have knees and hips and shoulders and so forth, you get the idea here. You need to plan to stay safe. There is something I want to talk about just briefly. And we all know when I gave a talk in Grand Cayman a few years ago about this stuff, the epidemiologist who came on before me said, what we now think of as whether you're a golfer or not, you think of, having a heart attack on the golf course is kind of an okay way to go because you've been living your life good till then. And then you're not going through a long period of depression and illness and care needs and so forth. They called it falling out of a banyan tree because you want to be able to climb a banyan tree. And then it's a certain point you can get up there, but in fact, you fall down. So this whole idea of accommodating, of having interventions, of avoiding the need for interventions and accommodations right up near the end and having a very short period of actual illness and so forth is called compression of morbidity. And I think that's kind of what we're all going for, as much as we're also, depending on the numbers, since I've been at this for 30 some years, the number has gone from 95 to 79 to 85, depending on how they test it. Most of us want to, and most of us have to stay in our homes because it's the only best place where we can go. If everybody decided they didn't want to age in place, we wouldn't have nearly enough other types of senior housing to care for us. So to me, aging in place is the ability to remain in the home of your choice, safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of your age, income, or ability level. And there's some misconception that you need to stay in the home you've lived in for many years, maybe where you raised children or had a career. No, no, no. It's where you choose to live. It may be near a golf course or near your university or near the ocean or near the mountains or near your family or away from your family. Wherever you choose, that's where aging in place happens for at your choice. So, what isn't aging in place is forced moves from the home of your choice due to foreseeable health changes. You were planning to age in place, but you lose a leg to diabetes and you can't get around. I mean, that's a severe one, but I've been in those circumstances with people. And that's why we need to kind of prepare ourselves for whatever will come. So why is aging in place so desirable? Well, you love your house, you know where the light switches are, you know where the light comes in the window in the morning, etc. It's home sweet home. It's economical for the most part, and there's a good deal of evidence showing that. You get the day-to-day control of your home, when people visit, when the door is open, when it's closed, when you eat, when you rise, when you go to sleep. And that gives you a sense of self-esteem that's critical to that positive aging we spoke about in the beginning, and the continuity, memories, independence, and just the very statement, I've lived here for decades and I'm doing fine. Um, Housing American, the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies said this a few years ago. Housing is the linchpin of well-being. The bulk of long-term care will occur in single-family owner-occupied homes, but the homes are not prepared. Given the scale of the challenges ahead, the best time to act is now. And that was then in 2014. And it's certainly as or more true for us as a society and for us as individuals in this time. So, what are the parts of aging in place? These are just some of them. Aging in place has a lot of parts that kind of have to mesh together very well for it really to occur. And again, with this dynamic rise and fall of needs of different types of services. So, aging in place to me is, we were talking about Mexican train, it's like setting up all those dominoes in a circle. And you know what happens if one domino falls? The whole circle falls. So we need to have this kind of integrated, coordinated, but flexible, resilient system behind us. So aging in place well is kind of like a symphony. There's a lot of pieces that have to come in and come out. Some are softer and quieter for a little while, some are bolder for a little while. And I'm not sure who the maestro, who the conductor is. As often, too often, the family, maybe with some coordination. I think that system needs to be more embedded in the infrastructure. But at any rate, uh, it is like this constantly moving, changing thing. So, what do you need to do real aging in place? You need to be able to get in and out of that house, not just get in after you come home from an acute condition or something, but get out to go to the doctor, to go to lunch, to go to play bocce. You need to be able to move around within the house, which has to do with stairs, doorways, turns, and lighting. Maneuvering in the house, especially if you're using mobility equipment, is not the same as walking through the house, especially if you are being helped by another person. The two of you have to be able to move together. Caregiving, I often say, is like a three-legged race. You're tied together at the hip. If one of you falls down, the race is over. It doesn't matter if it's the caregivee or the caregiver who falls down. The race is over for that team if one of the people falls down and gets hurt. You need to be able to prepare and eat your meals. Now, for some people, this isn't important. They have Meals on Wheels. They order from one of these places. Somebody, their neighbor drops them by, but you need to be able to get those meals. You need to be able to do your bill paying, your mail, your work at the computer. How many times do we see people sorting the mail on the kitchen table? Is that because it's the chair that's most easy to get out of, or the lighting's better there? What it is, we need a place where that activity is designated and organized. And then relaxing. reading, watching TV, music, reading, having guests. I've had a client say she didn't listen to music anymore because her stereo, this is in the days when it was a stereo, the stereo was behind a chair and she couldn't get in back there anymore. So she hadn't listened to music in a while. Another person told me they stopped reading because they moved their chair to be in the near the aisle so they could use it as a handhold to get by, and it was too far from the lamp that they used to read at that chair any before, so they stopped reading. A lot of small adjustments we make that really should not be made in the way they are. And then for me, particularly, I'm an outdoorsy guy. I like gardening, taking sun, eating outdoors, going kayaking, going biking, going walking, whatever it is. You need to be able to do those things well to enjoy with dignity aging in place. So these are just a few images of no step entries at homes. Most of our homes have steps, and there's many sort of good reasons for this, but there's also just the fact that it's the common way things have been done for a long time before people got to be 71, 79, 80. If people were dying at 47, there wasn't much need to worry about steps because most people at 47 can still walk around pretty good and get up the steps. But these are examples of what I think are beautiful no step entries. These are not ugly ramps into people's homes. And many homes can have these types of treatments. Here are a few more, including a lift, which you can see is hidden down kind of the end of the driveway, so it's not visible from the front of the house, but it gets you up those steps. And it's not that expensive. And here are a bunch of others. Some of these I did, some of these I have. I'm ridiculously stopping my car all the time to take pictures of things like this. Some of the smaller things on rails on each side of the stairs, lever handle doors so that if your grip gets poor from arthritis or something else, you can still open the doorknobs. Why are the plugs so close to the floor, making it hard to plug in and plug out the vacuum cleaner and so forth? Why shouldn't they just be higher? That's so simple. Railings on the two sides of the stairs. I can't tell you how important this is. If you have a sore shoulder on one side, you use the other hand going up. When you come down, you need it on the other side. When you're carrying something in one hand, you need it on the one side, you need it on the other side going down. Many homes, most homes have rails on only one side. There are good rail systems available now to make it easier for a skilled person to adapt a stair rail on the other side of your stairs. And then I have some pictures, as you might expect, of bathrooms with curbless showers and knee spaces at the sink and things like that. And they're not unattractive. They don't have to be ugly. They don't have to look like a hospital setting. Here's one bathroom I worked on, which is pretty high end. And this guy was severely disabled, um, had severe disabilities, and his wife was a primary caregiver. But you can see it's attractive. There's a place to sit. The shower area of the floor is just an area with these incredibly beautiful cobblestones. And there's an incredible system of rails and supports in this particular bathroom. Here are a couple more. Grab bars do not have to look like they look in the hospital and in the average restaurant. There are beautiful bars and beautiful ways to include them in the decor of the room. This is kind of my nerdy bathroom. I don't like a built-in seat because then it's in one place. This way, a caregiver can help you on the left, a caregiver can help you on the right. You can move it yourself. The handheld shower can go on one side or the other. The handheld shower holder is a grab bar, not something that looks like a grab bar that's really not, that gives you a false sense of security. And the hose is in a position so that it can reach all the way around you no matter where you're sitting. I am kind of a nerd. This is what I would like in my house. You may not want exactly this thing. I love my bidet. I love the warm seat in the winter, but I also love the hygiene and the luxurious feel of using a cleansing spray when I use the toilet. In the kitchen, why this woman's just sitting on an office chair and she's got everything conveniently located there so that she doesn't have to stand up the whole time she's cooking. Why does Thanksgiving need to mean sore feet and the need for an abundance of stamina? This kitchen above, you can see opens up, but the oven is at a special height with a place to put a hot pot right nearby. The doors at the sink open so you can sit at the sink, et cetera, et cetera. This rolling cart is a genius thing. Why not load a cart with when you're setting the table and roll it all the way across the room, or clearing the table instead of making a dozen little trips, a dozen trips. And then, of course, there are electronic conveyances. When you're in a two-story house and there are stairs and the bathroom or the main bathroom is upstairs, there's really only three strategies. You repurpose a room on the main floor, and some of us are familiar with this. It can be as bad as a hospital bed and commode in the living room. It can be converting a porch. It can be converting a dining room or something like that, or a den, or having a den that is prepared to be a living space on the main floor. It can be building an addition, or it can mean going upstairs with a type of equipment like this and then doing some work on the next floor to make it be the place where you can get your showering and get in and out of bed and get to the storage that's in the bathroom safely during the night. And then, as I said, raised beds for gardening. This fellow's able to use a seated area for his gardening activities. Why not? Why do we have to think of gardening as, oh, I can't do it anymore because I can't get down on the ground? There is no stigma. You put a grab bar in anyone's bathroom. Once you get it in there, you just use it. Do not feel like a grab bar makes your home look old or anything like that. I think a grab bar makes your house look smart. You're the person who's not going to fall down, and your guests will appreciate it as well, no matter their age or ability. There are a lot of mistakes. So, this beautiful house on Massachusetts Avenue in DC, Wesley Heights area that I worked on, they got the wrong people in there, and they built this ramp you can see up the side here, but it missed the door by 8 inches. It was totally worthless. This is so common, it's unbelievable. So make sure if you have someone redoing your landscaping that they know to make sure they're getting into the full height of the door. I was doing a booth with my partner Susan at the a long-term care insurance conference, and this guy comes running up to me and shows me this picture and says, "I did my bathroom for aging in place." And I didn't say a word to him, but I look at this picture and I see there's a very narrow door, which makes it hard to get in and out, and particularly hard for a caregiver to help you in. That seat is so far away from that door that how could one person actually help another person in that seat? And even if you're coming in, there's no grab bars to hold on to try to get your tush on that seat. And if you're on that seat, you can't reach the handheld, which is really high and really far away, and you can't use the controls, reach the controls from there either. And there is that kind of a bar on the door, but trust me, that door was not designed to be hold. That's not a grab bar, and the door was not designed to hold it. There's a big honk and step to go over to get in. It's not the way I would recommend that bathroom, but I can tell you this basic format is the conventional wisdom. This is another bathroom, no contrast. You can hardly see your way into the room. There's a step to get in. The seat is way too far back. The handheld is way high on something that is not a grab bar, and those controls are not anywhere within range of the seat. So this is a common thing. I see it all the time. Don't be more careful as you hire someone who knows what they're doing to get this done for you. There's also a lot of environmental controls, whether you can control your furnace, your lighting, your window shades, your window itself to go up and down, if you're like confined for a short term or a long time to the couch, or you just don't have the stamina to get up and down all day, but you don't want to have the window closed all day. You want to have it open sometime. And similarly with the sun shining in your window. And there are plenty of controls now. When I got into this, these were all kind of exotic controls. Now they're everyday controls. That's called universal design. Something that works for the widest range of people, works very well for people at the fringes of the bell curve in terms of abilities, but also works very well for people in the middle. The other two really good examples that we know for universal design are curb cuts. which obviously were done for wheelchairs, but we all use them for suitcases and so forth, and strollers and bicycles, and also closed captioning, which was obviously done for people who had hearing difficulties, but we all use it all the time. There's a really important policy, societal action that if we make things available and useful to people at the fringes of abilities, it will benefit everyone, that corollary benefits. And then there are now lots of dashboards and management functions for watching and managing your health conditions and the changes in your health conditions so as to anticipate difficulties. Um, and this, my partner Susan wrote these notes. If I can't get down the stairs to open the door, Grubhub still can't deliver my groceries. If I can't take my wheelchair over the front step out of my home, I can't make it to my driverless car. If I can't make it safely to the medicine cabinet, I can't take the medicine Alexa reminds me to take. And if I have a fall sensor inside an inaccessible home, I can't prevent falls. I only alert someone after the disaster has happened. So we have to be ahead of the game and not expect to rely on technologies to solve these problems for us. So, realities of aging in place, home updates, low-tech changes to home condition and design, quick steps. But also, is your home a good candidate? Frankly, I have to tell you that some homes I've been in, I just have to say, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. It's too hard to update this particular home. And what are the actual costs? What will be the return on your investment? How do you feel about that investment when you may need to move and so forth? Caregiver safe spaces, as I mentioned, two people moving around requires different spatial needs. And when do you make plans? But most importantly, when do you do it? And the answer is soon, sooner than later. The financial realities of aging in place. I'm not sure that $1,500 quite covers it. I love these articles, but I also worry that too often they give people a false sense of what's needed. Financial realities of aging in place. This is kind of just a short list of wide ranges of costs for different things in the house. The reality of home maintenance. Let me explain to you that we did some studies last year and found that something like 50% of aging in place focused contractors do 50% deferred maintenance on any job they come into. Now, deferred maintenance costs more than maintaining as you go. I'm sure you can understand that. But two other things are really important. Crises disrupt and interrupt your life, particularly sometimes in cases of dementia caregiving, where the routine is critically important for people and all of a sudden they're out of the house for a day or the furnace isn't working and there's furnace people in the living room. That's disruptive. Second of all, as I said, emergency services cost more, but also really important is a lot of people have come into a push comes to shove situation where they've decided they need to move to assisted living or something, and they can't get the cash out of their house they expect. So they sell it at a as is fire sale price to get the money, what little money they can as quickly as possible. Or they have to take time after they've made their decision to prepare their home to get a fuller price on it. Maintenance has become, in my mind, a huge critical issue that we did not notice so intently even a few years ago. Financial realities of aging in place, how much care? So there's the question about is it just basic care? Is it chronic care? And then also dementia. These are really significant cost variations in the amount of care needed. And as I said, a modified home reduces caregiver hours needed. So being prepared for these things is a very serious and difficult unknown, but the cycle of recovery, the resilience, what preparations you make can really impact the potential to remain safely at home of your choice. There are tax credit programs. The Virginia Accessibility Tax Program, which is, I think, $5,000, but it runs out every year, is a really excellent program. If you if you're going to have work done at your home, make sure you and your contractor look into it. It is one of the best programs in the country, the Virginia Accessible Home Tax Credit Program. And then just some resources. Many of you know of the Positive Aging Source Book, which is in this area, Steve Gurney's magazine and podcasts and so forth. It's one of the best in the country. I travel all over the country um, looking for that, looking at those types of resource books, and it's probably the best in the country. This MetLife paper on Aging in Place 2.0, I wrote in 2010 for the MetLife Mature Market Institute. Now, let me tell you something about it. It's good. It's still current. It's a visionary kind of statement about how we can have a better aging in place that's less chaotic through the development of systems of integrated care. The really good thing is it's still incredibly current, and the really awful thing is it's still incredibly current. We have not caught up and taken advantage of what we can do to increase our resiliency and prepare for aging in place. It is time we get better at it. So the real key is that you need it before you need it. And you know these kind of cute sayings, failing to plan is planning to fail. And if you just take that one message and get started on this planning and get started on implementing it from this call, I will be really happy to have spent this time with you. So, the benefits of aging in place preparation are that maintenance of that dignity, joy, and respect for one's choices, the independence, self-reliance, and resiliency that we all desire, avoiding the misery, cost, and dream loss of falls, and also very clearly faster return from health incidents. Recovery in your home, as you can well imagine, as you all know, is much faster. We're going to go through health incidents as we age. Let's be prepared to get home as soon as possible and start getting better. Again, 45% fewer caregiver hours needed in a prepared home. Increased value of prevention over accommodation. Not falling because you have a grab bar before you fall is so much more valuable than a grab bar that you put in so you don't fall again. Because many people who fall again. They fall because they're fearful of moving. They fall because they're fearful of moving. They become more sedentary, which is one of the risk factors in falling, lighting, etc. And all your assets are used better, longer. So, as I said in the beginning, size doesn't matter. Where doesn't matter. Planning is what really matters. So, there's all this stuff about younger members of the family talking to older members of the family, engaging the whole family in these discussions. And for the most part, many of us are pretty resistant to having our kids tell us what to do or something like that. I think it's time for us to take the real steps and get ahead of all this and do our planning on our own, be the adults that we really are. And with that, I'm available for questions, and I really appreciate your attention and your time today. Thank you very, very much.
All right, we've got a couple of comments already queued up. One of them was referencing the door handles you talked about for people who's don't have the grip strength they used to have. They make the point that those are easier for burglars to get into your home with no sign of forced entry. So their recommendation is if you're going to put handles like that on your doors, make sure you've got a deadbolt. Which
Oh yeah, I mean you can get lever handles with the push button in them and with a key knob on the outside. I have one here. I changed mine out, and also a deadbolt. It's not more. It's that's a misunderstanding, I think, of what I was talking about. But
okay,
clearly, that type of security, just the comfort of feeling like your home is secure from the marauding outside. And it's one of the good reasons if you're going to do like a ramp or something, I mean, a no-step entry, what I call a no-step entry, that it not be an obvious ramp because it kind of alerts people that you may be moving more slowly into your home at night and so forth.
You showed a number of pictures of bathrooms that have been redesigned, and this person says a lot of Arlington bathrooms are so small that it doesn't really seem possible to construct no threshold showers, wet rooms, all of these really nice to have features. I know the bathroom on the first floor of my house, a toilet, a tub, and a sink. Anything more, the door is going to hit something when I open it. So,
Okay, couple things there, really good points. One, if possible, widen the door, which is very complex in some cases because you have to patch the floor, you have to know what's above, what's on the sides. Is there room for a wider door? But have the door swing out. The door should not swing in. When the door swings in and you're falling down in there, they have to break the door down to get to you. If the door swings out, or then they can open the door and find you falling on the floor. That's one. Two, when you have a curbless shower, no threshold shower, that space becomes maneuvering space you can use because you can walk into that space without straddling the bump. So there's actually an almost an increase in maneuverability in the use of that space. If that curbless shower is close to the toilet, for example, a caregiver or a wheelchair or a walker can use that space to get in and get near the person to help them on or off the toilet. Three, I would encourage you, if you are going to do some work in that area, to think about maybe stealing or using, repurposing space nearby, part of another room, part of a closet. In many cases, I've gone into homes like that and said, the least expensive way for us to do this, and also to possibly have the home go back to a family. So that doesn't have these needs is to leave that bathroom alone and take the smallest nearby bedroom and turn it into a really nice large space bathroom, possibly even with a washer dryer in it, for short or long term use. Many of us live in homes that are at 20% occupancy or 25% occupancy or something like that. We used to have or 40% occupancy. We used to have 5 people living in the house, and now only 2 people are living in the house. So there's bedrooms that aren't used very much. Turn one of them into that big open caregiving bathroom and it can more easily be removed than the small bathroom can be reversed or something like that. So, I mean, there are a lot of strategies that you go through when you start out in a planned situation where you start not with solutions in mind, but with problems in mind and really open your mind over time to problem solving rather than in a crisis. Got to get something done this week because Joe's coming home and I can't visit him in the hospital anymore and I don't want to, and he's got to get out or he's going to go nuts. That's the situation we're trying to avoid.
okay, next question. Do you have recommendations for companies that can install handrails for a front porch with 3 steps?
Oh, look up. I mean, there are iron companies and general contractors. I don't have anybody in particular in mind. Certainly in Arlington, I'm no longer kind of on the ground with all that kind of stuff. But there are, um, railings like steel railings, for example, are really kind of an art form sometimes. And the people who do the steel work know how to attach them well.
Okay, can you repeat the Virginia aging kit that you just mentioned?
Yeah, look up, it's the Virginia Home Accessibility Tax Credit or something. It's one of the few that is not age, ability, or finance eligible has no eligibility requirements. It's actually I don't know exactly the name of it. You would probably just Google Virginia home accessibility tax credit or something.
Somebody said this old house had an excellent episode on refitting a toilet with a bidet that had no access to electrical outlet for operation.
No, right. Well, so when I do remodel a bathroom nowadays, I always say make sure you put in a plug for the bidet. Um, it just means installing a bidet is really not very hard for someone who's just a little bit handy. Installing the outlet to warm the bidet is more difficult, but it's an electrician. So I'm not sure what the question is.
Okay. Somebody made the comment that they'd like to add grab bars to their main bathroom, but they were a little surprised that you said two or three grab bars would only cost $500. Is that an accurate
Yeah,
assessment?
I think two well-installed grab bars, a good price for that is like 495.
Okay.
Um, some people say that's high. I don't think so. I think that's about what it should be. The third grab bar, if you want it, is probably, not 250. It's going to be another 100 or 100 and a quarter. And it also very much depends on the bars you pick. So I showed some beautiful bars. So there are bars that cost $28 a piece, and there are bars that cost $280 a piece, depending on what they look like, what the material is. So that's a factor.
Okay. What characteristics should we look for when we're looking for a contractor to help with these kinds of home adaptations?
Okay, well, first of all, there are people who have taken courses, Age Safe America and accreditations. They're not quite accreditations. They demonstrate an interest and some knowledge in the topic. One is the program from the National Association of Home Builders called CAPS, Certified Aging in Place Specialist. Stronger in Northern Virginia is a program, is an organization called NARI, National Association of the Remodeling Industry, and they also have their own training program for this. I forget what it's called. The National Kitchen and Bath Association has training in this type of stuff. What I would look for and most carefully is somebody who is passionate and experienced and doesn't ask you. You can read my series. I wrote a series in something called Aging in American News in the past couple weeks called the forever home fallacy. Someone who comes in and asks you, is this your forever home? And you say, well, we don't think so. And then they proceed not to make accessibility modifications. That's the wrong person. The other wrong person is the person who's primarily a company that sells equipment as their main focus because they're going to look for an equipment solution rather than a holistic solution. Um, so it's someone who cares, someone who's passionate, someone who has some experience, and someone who gets that you are not preparing this home for you to be the way you are forever, but for you to be different than you are in the near or long future.
Okay, we've got a comment here to check out uh, Consumer's Checkbook to find companies that do this kind of work. And everybody who's a member of ANV has a subscription to that, so you can get access to it for free. So, are there modifications that you see people making that you think are a mistake?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, showers like I showed, that have a step, have a built-in seat. I'm not a big fan of built-in seats because you may want to sit this way or that way, um, and that have a seat. I mean, the really common one is where you take out the tub and you put in a seat with a low wall next to it, and then you put maybe a grab bar way across the shower from it, and then you put a handheld that's comes off at the top, so it's not on a long hose, so you can't really reach it, and you can't reach the controls from that seat. That's the most common one. The second most common one is probably the seat is the no step entry to one step at the top. So people all the time say, "Oh, there's 3 steps to my house," and I go, "I bet there's 4. Why don't you go take another look?" And they go, "Oh yeah, how did you know?" Because you think of the 3 steps to the stoop. But then now there's the step from the stoop to the house. That's another step. Those are the 2 most common ones I see. Also, one more thing I wanted to say about the small bathroom idea. We know how to use small bathrooms on boats and motorhomes and trailers and stuff. So there is a way to think about. I've done a bathroom, it was a fairly good sized powder room in a beautiful older home in Chevy Chase, DC, off was Connecticut Circle, Chevy Chase Circle there. And we made it so that there was a drain in the floor and the shower controls were next to the toilet. And the person went into the bathroom, actually in a rolling shower komocha, rolled over the toilet, closed the door, pulled a curtain, which now swings out, pulled a curtain over the door, took the shower while sitting on or over the toilet, and it drained into the floor. So there are many ways to kind of prepare a tighter space with little imagination.
How much does it cost to change a door from opening in to opening out?
Well, it might not cost a lot. It might cost $500 or $600, but you have to be concerned that there's room for that door to swing on the way out, that it's not going to be in the way of the travel path. Now that door has to remain closed all the time. So you have to kind of worry about daylight that you were getting from that hallway. And um, it's a hard thing to say depending on the circumstances exactly, but it might not be too bad for a carpenter to just come in and do it. They have to turn the stop around. They have to re-chisel the hinges and fill in the other hinge holes. It just might not be too bad. There's also something called swing clear hinges, which can be applied to that door or another door, which gives you a little more travel space between the door stops if you can't actually widen the door.
And we've got somebody here suggesting people think about pocket doors.
Pocket doors are sometimes very good, but most of us, when we think about a pocket door, we think about that little handle that we can't actually maneuver to get the door open. So when I
Yep.
do pocket doors, I try to make it so that the pocket allows the door to stick out an inch or two into the opening, even when it's closed all the way. That opening is still large enough to be the accessibility you want, and you can put a decent kind of handle that you can get a kind of a grip on or get a few fingers in and pull that door open and closed. I've also done some doors where we did a pair of pocket doors that separated in that same way. It depends on what's in the walls. It can be pretty expensive and maybe you've got a linen closet next to the door. You don't want to block access to the linen closet or make it so that you have to close the door. I don't know how you would make that work. It's not always, many of these things are not simple. And that's one of the great things about having the time to plan is that you can think through for this novel solution that I'd love you to send me a picture of.
Okay. Did you mention the name of your company?
I did not. I didn't think I'm not here like promoting myself. I do a number of just the very basic visits to people's homes, very few anymore. I uh, have moved on to other things. I also, as I said, my partners who are both on this call, Seymour Turner and Susan Kimmel, we have a company that has been awarded a grant from the National Institutes on Aging to build an app for the safe installation of grab bars at scale. And we are just about to start piloting that in the DMV for discounted grab bars installed using this app, with the idea being that any qualified person, licensed insured person who has is able to use a drill, has experience using a drill, a tape measure, and a level, can install grab bars well without going through a big process of becoming an expert. So it is allowing a skilled person to become an expert in this important area through the use of our app.
What's the app called?
The app is called Safe Mount. The most we because it was an NIA, National Institutes on Aging grant. We went through quite an iterative process and rigorous laboratory testing of the app in development, and we are about to release the most recent version, which will then be used in piloting. Actually, the way I got in touch with Arlington Neighborhood Villages, we put in for another grant for doing these pilots to AARP, and had support letters from a number of the villages in the area, as well as I saw someone was on from CERT here, as well as from the local EMS department in Montgomery County. The falls are a growing, significant, and very costly problem for fire and EMS departments. And there has been some really good evidence around the country that preventing falls, not the second fall, but sometimes the second fall, preventing falls can really reduce this burden on the fire and EMS departments at the same time that it keeps you from the misery of a fall. I mean, not doing whatever you can, exercise, eyesight, lighting, picking up rugs, making sure your dog's not in the way, and putting up grab bars is the smallest, simplest thing you can do to preserve the life you want. So we're out here trying to just help people do that.
All right. Well, it's 7 minutes after 11. So if anybody has a last question you want to throw in, now's the time. Otherwise, we should probably wrap it up and let Lewis get back to, to his life.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I love engaging with people, and I care that we can make our own aging experiences better. We have the control. Take it, seize the control.
All right. Well, I certainly learned a lot, and I know of at least one door that I'm going to have changed to swing out. So thank you for a lot of useful information.
You're welcome. Thanks very much. Have a great day and a great weekend. I'm always looking forward to the weekend because I'm still working. So, thanks, guys.